Cannalachia, episode 4.
Go with me, go with me.
Come on, Cannalachia.
I love that. That's great.
It's awesome.
That's our theme song that Chill wrote for
That's
us.
magic.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
It's Cannalachia time.
That's right.
Very exciting.
Yes.
It's Amanda here, JC, and super excited to have with us tonight local celebrity chef as featured on Food Network, Josh Gardner.
Hey.
Hi. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah. This is fun.
We're so excited to have you. We're gonna talk about
Stuff.
and things.
All my favorite things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food and weed.
Food and
music.
weed. Yeah. That's pretty.
yeah.
That's the secret to success.
Right? I think so. So we're going to start off this episode like we do every episode. We're going to talk about Canna News.
Yeah. It's a fun month for cannabis in the world.
It is.
It
There's
is.
lots of news happening. That was my bad sound effect of like what do you call it?
The news briefing.
Oh, yeah.
Telegram. Is it Telegram?
Telegram.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marconi. So, JC, what news do you have?
So, I know that we spoke on an earlier episode, talked about Missouri and how much that, I think it was around $17 million that they had took from both their medical and their recreational marijuana market and gave that back to veterans benefits like legal aid, medical care, those sort of things. So on this episode, what I'd like to do is back up to Missouri again because it was just released that as of this year, so they started recreational in February of 2023, they have now brought in $1 billion in revenue
In just
in
Missouri?
Missouri.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, can you just imagine the things that we could do in our communities and our
Yeah.
Commonwealth
No,
and stuff?
I think it's funny how Kentucky's still like slowly getting circled. I know we passed whatever medical initiative that we did, and we've got a couple years before that takes hold. But then like specifics of that don't really like free it up for anybody for real because of the restrictions they still put on it. So
That's true. And I know that a lot of the folks who have been working on the medical program here are looking to expand that in the upcoming session that's coming up. However, as we've watched Ohio and our other neighbors kind of like just run across that finish line, it makes you kind of wonder, how can we speed that up here? I mean, it's really at this point, we don't have a ballot initiative like Ohio has, so it's left on the legislative body. So
Right. And we have legislators that'll put stuff forward, but then it gets kind of just like lost in every legislative sessions. You'll have an article and it's like, oh, it's going to happen this year, and then after the article makes it out of the news cycle, we're not talking about it anymore.
Yep. No, I mean, it's the same. It's what we're seeing in Kentucky is similar to so many other places, but on the federal level, the House keeps passing these, the MORE Act and all these things, and then it just
kind of
lost
fizzles out. Yeah.
before it reached. The Senate doesn't.
You would think that would be
Even
the
look at
like that could be one of the issues that people can like run on at this point. Like for me, I don't care whichever side decides to just federally legalize weed and beats them to it. You get my vote.
Right.
But because it will require a certain amount of federal legalization in order for it to like the banking has to be available, and they need to get drawback on some of the whole DOT restrictions on smoking. Well, like
Yeah.
we
talked about that a little bit last week. I know, but about 10, I think, cannabis businesses in the state of Massachusetts are suing the Attorney General in order to get that interstate commerce and to get it out of the however it's classified within
Well, and companies that you have, or dispensaries, or companies who are in the marijuana or cannabis industry that have multiple locations in different states, that creates a really big issue. And, I think if we're going to look at it from a federal level and how that we could possibly even pay off our national debt that continues to accumulate, we have to deal with the interstate commerce.
Yeah.
And that's why it's extremely important that we have it at a federal level. And I think there's benefits, though, at the state level, too, that each state kind of has its things. But, I mean, we're literally living, as we continue to hear, in the wild, wild west when it comes to weed. I mean, every state. I mean, it's just...
I mean, it's county to county is fine. We have here in Kentucky, we have dry county. This is the bourbon capital of the world, and we have dry counties all over the place. That's fine.
Yeah, I grew up in a dry county.
I did too.
The town I live in now, they just went. I mean, they were moist for a couple of years. It's a fun word to say. And now they're wet-ish, I guess. But then
They're damp. They went from
moist to damp.
damp,
They're
yeah.
wetter. I don't really know what the idea is, because there's like, oh, we don't have a liquor store. And I'm like, so what? Shut up. And so I think we might actually have the first liquor store in Berea opening. It's open now. I don't really know. I don't drink. I'm the wrong person.
Right.
But then, like, the social aspect of it, growing up in Berea, that was one of the hardest things for us, is like, there's nothing to do. And as a kid, the drinking thing has nothing to do with it, but there's still nothing to do now. And so anybody that, like, socializes or goes out, for the most part, they leave Berea to go do stuff. Now, albeit, like, Allie Blair's doing amazing things with Rebel, and she's making the best she can in Berea. But yeah, we just in the last election went wet.
I grew up in a dry county, and it's just been in the past maybe 3 or 4 years that it went wet. And, one of the things that I would always say is people were leaving our county and going to over the county line and spending their dollars there. And, a lot of people in our community would be like, well, wonder why that town has this or why that town has that. Well, they have more tax revenue.
Yeah.
And you're paying for it. And I think that just goes back to a lot of, I don't know, maybe personal experiences, but maybe misunderstandings. And I think, us doing this podcast, it's my hope that when folks from different walks of life and different places get to tell their story and talk about cannabis a little more, not just to educate, but to really meet someone on a personal level and their experiences, that maybe people really think about that cannabis is not really this scary, horrible thing.
Reefer madness.
Right. It's just not. And there's so many benefits to it. And, if we could get past the scare of the word marijuana and let's look at cannabis as a whole, it opens us up to so much more, even with our fiber, with hemp and those sort of things, because the whole hemp industry has really suffered because of marijuana legislation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my exciting piece of news,
Yes.
I don't know if you guys know this, I just found out this morning that this week 10 different nations are meeting in Germany to discuss how, as these different countries, because Germany is moving towards recreational as a country, and it's also joining in this conference, this international conference of cannabis legislation is what they're calling it. It's Canada, Mexico, the United States, Netherlands, Malta,
Okay.
Germany. I can't remember. Anyway, but it's all of these different nations that the Netherlands, if I didn't already say that. So it's almost Thanksgiving. I've been cooking for 4 hours today already. So they're all coming together to look at, how California, how Canada, and how on a global level we can start to see how cannabis is
how every state or country is doing it, and maybe even have maybe some intercontinental, international type treaties to do business with, and see if we can do it at the international level, but we can't get there on a national level. I mean,
we're so dysfunctional.
we're a dysfunctional family, right?
Yeah, but so the way that we deal with international alcohol sales and shipping and transport and all of so they're looking at on like microcosm, how do we deal with it within our own countries so I guess the German ambassador that's taking part of this conference was in California 2 weeks ago and in Vancouver before that to bring that information back to Germany, and Yeah. So it's I
That's
was
very
like,
cool.
that's a very cool
That's-
thing
That's progress.
That is.
to know that on that scale, that global scale of like, hey, because Germany, much like in the U.S., they were, realizing just how big the black market is and how it can hurt people if it's not regulated.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that concerns me on that, growing up in Kentucky and seeing local news where there was a drug bust or something, it always seemed like there was this little bag of weed with all this other stuff. And I was like, why are we doing that to the weed? Because the weed's not killing people, But the concern we have now that we have issues with things like fentanyl and these very, very strong drugs that people are abusing, pharmaceuticals that are being abused on the street, the concern is that that's going to get crossed over in a black market bag of weed.
Right.
That's very concerning, And I mean, and I'm not saying I'm against there's always going to be a black market for things, but I think the legislation and having an industry that allows us to have safe access to
I
clean.
think the safe access is a big part of it. I think, though, that the black market aspect of it will persist because we can't figure out how to legalize without, like, taxing everything to death.
Right.
California has the problem of overtaxation, and so people still go to the weed man on the corner because they don't want to pay the whatever price difference. I find some places are smarter about it, some are less. I understand that there's a lot of revenue to be garnered from it, but at the same time, like, I'm of the opinion that it should be, I kind of like the Wild West about it.
Right.
But what I would like to see is that if I grew my own weed, my ability to test my weed for potency and safety and all those things, and the lab side of things were accessible and available and out in the open because it's not a, stigmatized industry.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty. We were talking last week about everybody kept saying 30 days in Ohio. What's happening in 30 days? And I finally did the real research. So starting on December 8th, Ohioans can grow up to 12 plants in their own homes.
Holy cow.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a large, because for any of the other states that I've read about, that's all still only like.
It's 6 plants per adult or 12 per household. So a married couple can grow 12 plants. A single individual can grow 6.
Well, and I think, and that's really important too, not just, for all of our, your vegetables, your herbs, or whatever anymore, it's hard to tell what's in your food. So I think that people should be able to grow it, whether it's because they can't afford it at the dispensary level or that they just they know what they feed their plants, before they utilize it. And I think that, so I'm not against the Wild Wild West. I think the biggest problem is creating products in the past throughout the hemp industry. There's just been so many, at our level, certain stipulations and regulations that seem to kind of hinder the industry a little bit.
Yeah.
But the whole interstate commerce, we have federal legislation through the Farm Bill that makes hemp legal under 0.3% of THC going to the retail market. But then you've got some states that have medical marijuana, and then you have some with recreational and some with both, and then it just all gets tricky. You've got synthetics running around, and it's just it's crazy.
I think sometimes that what did you say the percentage was that they have?
It's 0.3%.
I find sometimes, this is probably mostly my opinion, but that percentage is sometimes hard to hit for a person. Like, say you grow 100 acres, and this is cannabis we're talking about. Like, you're not really going to breed the THC out of it. You can breed the THC down, but when you have such a low threshold, you get whole hemp crops that are essentially rendered
marijuana
unusable. Yeah, they're rendered marijuana. Now they're illegal. Burn your fields.
Well, we've had tons of farmers here in Kentucky that lost a lot of time, effort, and money over it.
Yeah.
And it's it really where that and a lot of people in the industry have worked on this and are working on it. And I don't know where it's going to head to. Some people have thrown out, well, let's go 1%, let's go this. At the end of the day, it should really be left on the processors and the producers of the actual product from it. If we're not selling the flower, because at the end of the day, once you kind of condense that down, it's higher than 0.3% anyway. So the person who's actually making a product, a lotion, a gummy, whatever, could really be the person who should I wouldn't say should, I don't like to use the word should, but could be the person who sees to it that the product that goes to market follows whatever the legal guidelines
Right.
are. But the farmers themselves should, it shouldn't be left on them, because the time, the effort, and the money that they've put into it kind of all goes to waste if that crop has to be burnt. And not to mention, there's people who could utilize that cannabis for medical reasons or whatever, and that's going to waste too. You know?
Well, and we're guilty of like discarding secondary produce a lot in this country. So like not weed. I've seen the ad for like Ugly Food or something to that effect, and it's a company that like will bring
Misfits, I think.
Misfits,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
okay,
it.
that's what. And you think about all the things that we lose in our food through the like standard machinations of agribusiness in this country, right? There's all these varieties that we miss. There is a massive push towards heirloom and grow it yourself, and that's where you improve food quality and you improve ingredient choice and you keep varietals alive that are the things that kept your grandparents thriving. And I think that by allowing back to weed, the same sort of an ideal, like if I want to grow some in my garden or if I want to grow it in a house plant in a window, so what? Right. I don't think we need to legislate my plants to death, just the same as like we don't legislate a tomato.
That's right.
Which in some aspects we should. I mean, you think about all the recalls and stuff on produce that we have, salmonella outbreaks, E. coli, blah, 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 and it's in these mass
produced yeah.
foods. And so, I'm not saying that, everybody that lives in town can't grow a garden that should, which I am. If you can, do it. It doesn't have to be, acres, and but you can grow something that feeds yourself. And if your neighbors are growing, you can trade. And weed works the same way. I like to grow peppers. I'm not great at tomatoes, but I grow peppers and I trade them for tomatoes, and I still get my salsa. And
it all makes sense. It's and then we get into the scary conversation of when Monsanto starts,
right? That is
trademarking,
I don't think we ought to be
cannabis
able
seeds.
to patent. Patenting life was a problem
It's
when
horrifying.
it happened.
Yeah.
That's a soapbox that I could spend a whole bunch of time on.
Well, I've heard people over the past several years talk about how they would love to see people actually be able to bring it to, say, farmers markets in a way like you would sell anything else. And a lot of other people I've talked to that have been probably staples in the hemp industry over the years here have talked about, how could they get it to a place that was similar to tobacco. And, if you think about it, I could picture or envision, we had tobacco warehouses here. So what if you had people who were growing and they were able to bring it to market, test it, show the test results, and allow people like dispensaries and folks to come in and
you sure you
bid
have a
on
license to come in the room, but I think that's a fantastic. I don't know that it'll ever get freed up that way because we can't. I don't know. I feel like our legislators are so performative, right?
Yeah.
It's not that they really care that you're smoking weed, but they got to be seen on camera acting real tough on it, even meanwhile they're behind doors doing what they do.
Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to xenophobia and all that,
Well, and they're out of. I've seen the other side of that too, and I think folks they leadership should be leading and serving the people who they represent. And a lot of times running a campaign to be there, living in, we've heard that called the Bible Belt, or the different places that we live and different belief systems, and how cannabis is frowned upon in some of those. And it's my hope that having folks on to have these discussions, people will see that, it's not the scary plant. And if we could have that conversation, I kind of wonder a lot of times if the legislators, like you're saying, they don't really mind what you're doing at home as long as you're not harming other people. blah 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 blah. But it's kind of like they're more concerned about maybe a certain demographic not voting for them or something if they were to support that. And I think that's something that really needs to be discussed as a whole, not just put on the legislators' shoulders, but as a community, as a people. But I totally get where you're saying.
Well,
yeah.
our legislators aren't going to respond unless, as voters, we respond. And when we have voter turnouts in the state of Kentucky in the 30s, we're not going to change the conversation because most of that 30% is said demographic.
But even when we do, that's where I get tripped up about the legislation and the politicians, because even when the people do speak up, the way they did in Ohio, the way they are in what town in Texas we were talking about a couple weeks
Lubbock,
ago.
I
In
do
Lubbock,
believe, yeah.
where the people come out and the majority vote yes to legalize cannabis on a recreational level, and legislature goes, yeah, but we don't think you really mean that.
Yeah. We don't think you know what you're talking about. We have to write it back. They kind of are doing the same thing in Virginia, where they had this legalized effort, but they still can't get the legislature to do anything really. It's kind of convoluted, but it sounds like they were like, yes, recreational weed, but wait, no, not really.
I think the question we have to ask there is maybe who are they serving? Is it the people or the corporations?
That's what I'm wondering.
Well, and that's another one. You brought up Monsanto's. The one thing I want to see never happen to the cannabis industry is the Monsanto-ifying effect of it. Like, I don't want the pharmaceutical companies to have any authority to come write a law about it, grow any weed. I don't want to buy your weed. Keep your shit, make your pills elsewhere, leave me alone. I would rather it's much more approach it from the farmer's market perspective of things. Do I worry that will happen because they have more money to pay for more political attention than I do all the time?
Yeah.
What do I see happening of it? I don't really know. I feel like the average stoner is a lot more discerning than they get credit for, in that, like, we're probably not going to go buy, pharmaceutical branded pot when the like potency and efficacy of it from, the guy up the street is the same. I don't see ever going about it that way. I do appreciate the science kind of perspective of it, like this strain does this and more here, less there. And I like that.
Well, and I think what's good about that too is I've ran across people over the past few years who's like, I was in L.A. or I was in Vegas or I was in Michigan and I tried this and tried that and it just didn't work for me. And I was like, well, did you try anything else? No, I don't think it's good for me. I'm not going to do it. But the thing is when you follow that bit of science and you start looking at things like the terpenes and the breakdowns of these cannabinoids, there is a purpose for it all. And I think don't give up on it. I think continue to try. But I think when we have the ability here in the Commonwealth, for a lot of the people, because most of those people are here that I'm talking to, when they have the ability to go somewhere local, whether that be recreational or a medical dispensary, and they can actually see all of these different things and then try them, I think that might change for them. So,
and having an educated opinion sometimes behind that counter that says, this does this, this does that.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a person told me at one in California one time, she was like, don't worry about anything I just said to you. Like, if your nose tells you like it, trust your nose. And so I did, and I ended up finding a strain that I don't know that I would have bought because the THC percentage wasn't, all the way through the roof, and I'm trying to get, because I'm at a dispensary. But trust your nose. Your instincts generally can kind of guide you sometimes, and I've used that a lot, and a lot of my favorite strains that I seek out now are, that way. And then I have ones that I don't really care for because whatever, the nose knows.
Right. So we obviously know as an adult you're quite the connoisseur now. But do you remember your first cannabis experience?
Bro, I could tell you a bunch of stories and I don't know if I should, but whatever. No, so me as a person, any amount of actual trouble that I've ever been in my entire life has been pot related in some form or fashion. Josh has never done anything rowdy. I don't get PIs. I just smoke weed and go to concerts and things. My earliest one, honestly, man, I think I was like 8.
Oh, that'll do you.
Yeah, like found a roach somewhere. I don't know. In high school, like that doesn't really count to me. Like, yes, it counts because it's a funny story, but I wasn't like, smoking joints every day at 10 years old. It's not how it was.
So yeah, it's a little bit like me, like sneaking champagne glasses at a
Right,
Yeah,
parents'
yeah,
New
yeah.
Year's
Right.
Eve party.
Everybody's drank a beer with your dad. It was like, here, I want some of that. Oh, you sure? Here you go. Blah. No, not for me. No, I'll pass. But so in high school, though, like 16, I'm driving, probably junior year of high school. I got in trouble for having pot at school. And it was like, I had been out with some people the night before. We had bought some weed. We all got stoned, riding around dirt roads. It was a great time. Everybody goes home, wake up next morning. I have a joint still in my pack of cigarettes. And I'm like, bro, after school, let's go. Before I even got out of class, somebody had like dry snitched. He has weed. He has weed over there. Go get him. And so, whatever.
Always.
And so they come get me out. Apparently, I had been dealing pot in school for the last 6 months. And I'm like, bro, I've smoked weed the first time like yesterday. I don't know what you're talking about. So, whatever. They throw the book at me. And I did the whole stint in alternative school and hanging out with all the bad kids. And boy, if I haven't smoked a joint every day since.
As you should.
Out of pure fucking spite.
I have a funny one to go with because I was also accused of dealing weed in school, in my private school, which I didn't do. It's true, I didn't. One time I did. We used to do Disneyland trips. We the what is it? First night last. It's a thing. All the high schools get to go into Disneyland until like 4 a.m. I bought a book of acid and sold it to all my friends. So that was my one and only time drug dealing in high school. But I got caught dealing marijuana. And I was like, what are you talking about? No, I didn't. And legitimately, and looking back, it obviously looked really dumb, but legitimately my friend had missed lunch. So I went to our bookstore where you could buy frozen chicken sandwiches and like ramen cups. And I bought him a ramen cup and a chicken sandwich and handed it to him in a brown paper bag. And he handed me $5 cash.
Oh, you're selling weed.
And I was selling
Watch
weed.
out.
And I got like drug tested.
That
and my
child is
room
an entrepreneur.
searched.
Leave them alone.
And I was like, it was a chicken sandwich. Go check my like bookstore account, but it was a huge thing. And I wound up getting suspended because they did find a bottle of Jack Daniels in the trunk of my Foot Locker in my room. I was at boarding school, but yeah, no. So I was also the drug dealer, but they never actually busted me for the drugs I did sell. They busted me for a chicken sandwich.
For a chicken sandwich, yeah. Yeah.
Scotty. So that happened. So I feel you. I'm not always getting in trouble.
And so ever since, I'm stubborn, man. Oh my, I'll smoke till I die out of spite. But no, so then fast forward to now, I'm an adult. I'll smoke all the weed I want.
Right. So I was gonna say
blunts a day,
medical purposes, but nah.
Well, I don't live in a place where that matters, right?
Right.
Like having it for medical purposes does me absolute jack. But the day somebody says, "Hey, you can go here," and they'll give you a medical card, I'm signing up. Give me the card.
Well, that's today. You don't know that?
No, I don't know where to go.
$150.
Sign me up. Can we do it in class right now?
I wish if I was the doctor that could do it. Yeah. No, I still have to go too.
Is there there's a
Let's
program
edit
set
this
up?
part out because we'll just pretend like I've
Well,
always had my medical card.
There's not necessarily a it's being kind of built. So right now in Kentucky, there's two things that's going on. One is they're trying, I think 2024 will be the big year of how they're going to set up the mainframe of how the program's going to work. Ultimately, what has happened right now until then, the governor has signed kind of like a pre-pardon under an executive order. So if you have a document, there's a form, that if your medical provider or your doctor signs that you have one of those conditions that the legislative body have kind of passed for the medical reasons.
There's a doctor on Southland Drive.
That's what I need to know.
There you go. There you go. But that's kind of how that's set up. But we are working toward there so that you can have that. But
No, there's when you Google cannabis clinic Kentucky, there's like there's like one in every county or one in every.
I just don't know if
Well-
I trust. Like, I get the one that's like Cannabis Coalition, KentuckyCannabisCoalition.com, and I'm like, I don't know if I trust the internet to sell me like a legal binding piece of paper.
No,
Well,
it's an office. It's the cannabis clinic,
Yeah.
and it's a doctor's office, and you have to go in, and you actually have to have like a referral from another physician or a medical card from another state.
Okay.
Which I'm hoping that my California will come over to Kentucky, even though it expired in 2011.
so
we'll see. But
I don't like. I totally like that one's a whole new one for me.
That's where you go to get the card. Now, there's one in Fayette, there's one in Jefferson, there's a couple other there's specific offices.
go ahead.
Well, I think I guess I need to look into that because the folks that I know that are working to build this program have been very concerned about people who are taking advantage of folks, because all you need at this point in time is to have your physician sign this piece of paper and have it. I know as soon as this all started to come up, there was yard signs being put all over Lexington about calling this 800 number to get your medical marijuana card. And there are doctors who, well, I don't know if I want to call them doctors, medical professionals or what, in different areas who are trying to take advantage of Kentuckians to get them to pay for that, which really is not much different than having a doctor just sign the form for free for you for the pre-pardon at this moment. Because really, what you're doing, if you are, that is to allow people to go to a recreational state, purchase it, bring the receipt back, and just have that you have a condition. So now I don't know. I just know I don't know anything about that one, so I'll look into it.
Sense to me. So in California, for instance, when we first went medical, there were places you would actually go because you had to have a license, and you couldn't necessarily go to your family physician to get that license.
Interesting.
You would get a referral from your family physician to then take to so if the thing that I saw in Southland Drive is bogus, it's bogus, but it is working exactly the same way that it did in California for years.
If I'm not mistaken, in Florida, what happens is you'll have like your medical records and your information, and the doctor signs off on it, and then you actually have to get on a state website and get that license through the state the way you would like a driver's license at the DMV. So you have your documentation, they sign off, you pay your fee directly to the state, give them that information, and then they issue the card there. So every state is so different.
It's so different. Yeah,
It
no,
really.
I just want to be
California-
able to take my medical
Right.
card to a medical dispensary and buy medical priced weed. So my wife just came back from Colorado. When she was out there, they went to a dispensary. The exact same weed was, let's say the medical menu, $100 an ounce. The recreational menu was like $2.75 an ounce. I just want the card so I can just pay $100 an ounce. And then be able to bring it home and y'all just leave me alone. That's really all I'm after, is for the state to fuck off.
Yeah. Nah, send Chill out to the car to go, because my marijuana certificate from California is in my glove box in my car. It just lives there always. But it literally is it was when I went to the clinic to go get it was like $50. And the doctor signs it and puts it in a plastic. It's like, it literally is like a certificate, like a, like a printed piece of paper.
And
It's so funny.
the three of us sitting here having this conversation, it's one of those things where, it kind of sounds like, okay.
You don't actually have to go to the car to get my.
Exit stage left. He's like, all right, fine, I'm gone.
But here we are, the three of us talking about it, and we have all three different kind of variations of stories of different places. And it's like, to the average person who's sitting out there thinking, I would like to use that for my condition, or I wonder if it would help, or I've tried it and I'd like to, but this seems really complicated. It should not be that
shouldn't.
complicated, especially for people who are sick.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the list of things that are qualifying conditions. Chronic pain, anxiety might be the one that most people go for, but the folks that are suffering from some of the more detrimental conditions on that list, It's an actual like boon to their life. And you think about whatever, we can't smoke weed in America, but like all the drugs that are advertised during the 6 o'clock news and the side effects that go along with them. And some of them are like death or, you know, you're going to shit yourself in a Wendy's drive-thru. You just
and that's
don't know.
usually an anxiety medicine. I'm thinking if you didn't have anxiety already, you're gonna.
You're going
Right?
to.
Right?
Yeah. And so why would you want to take that for anxiety when you just smoke some weed?
And then there's those. So I fall under the categories of PTSD and anxiety. But the reason why I started my medical journey with cannabis was because I have gastrointestinal issues.
Yeah.
And the state of Kentucky is not even looking at that. That's not even on the list.
Yeah,
I don't think.
it's a whole treatment for Crohn's and IBS and
Crohn's.
stuff.
I have IBS.
Well,
is
I will
my-
tell
yeah.
you that on the list of things that they're working on trying to get the legislative body to add the next session, I know Crohn's is on that list of the things. And I've actually written Frankfurt and the folks that are fighting for that to actually support the list that they've added. And I know that Crohn's is on there.
Okay.
So I know there's a list of 12 or
IBS.
13 that are on there. Fibromyalgia, I think, is on there. There's several of them, but it definitely needs to happen.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a person that I think that needs to be left between the patient and the practitioner. Period.
So-
It shouldn't be legislated. You know.
Well, you know, if we're going to be free country and you're free to do this and free
That's
to
right.
do that, I'm free to smoke pot. I mean, alternatively, so are they free to do, you know, fentanyl or whatever, but not that I'm encouraging, you know, but if you're going to apply the same like freedom argument to it, you have to apply it across the board, which I don't know what that like outcome of it what Oregon a few years ago legalized
Decriminalized,
like
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the like outcome of it, but the little bit I knew about like when Portugal did it, they saw a huge decline in just about everything except maybe smoking pot.
It's how it's handled. I can't remember what. Not that I hate to bring him up, but in this context, it's relevant. Russell Brand years ago did a documentary about heroin, and I can't remember what country he went to, where because he went to he went somewhere where it was completely decriminalized, and it was not a good situation. But then he went somewhere else. It might have been the Netherlands or someplace like that, where they actually had like safe places to go to get a clean needle, to do that, and you could physically go into this building and use it. You would get your own little room to use in. And they saw a huge decline in heroin there as well.
There is a decline on that, and I know that there's programs throughout the Commonwealth in a few places in certain counties where they have a needle exchange program, and that has created a lot of conversation in communities because, you know, you have folks who are diabetic and have a hard time getting certain things, whether that be their insulin or, you know, their needles are expensive or whatever the case may be, and they're like, well, I can't get mine free, but if I was a drug addict, I
It should
could.
not be harder
And-
to get
and-
insulin than it is to get heroin.
Correct. And that's true. And that's something that needs to be looked at. I'm not saying that I'm against the idea of a program or doing what they've done if we see a decrease in that,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm not. I am the last fan of heroin. I've lost way too many friends to heroin overdoses. It's okay. What solutions
Do we
bring
have-
to decrease heroin use?
If you're not going to address the socioeconomic issues that got us into an addiction-based lifestyle in
you
the
go.
first place, you're not going to fix anything.
That's right.
You like this whole punitive perspective on it, where we're going to criminalize it. Now we're going to, you know, drag this person down here and handcuff them, and then we're going to take them downtown and charge them a bunch of fines. They don't have any money.
right.
Like court costs, fuck off. Like you're not fixing this person's problems. You are just, and in a lot of aspects, because the state gets involved, you're making it worse.
Do you know how we can make more money to handle all that recreational weed, and then we'd have enough money to help those people in programs?
I'm fine with if recreational pot and the revenue generated from that can be used to fix a problem, it should.
Tons of problems we could
You know,
apply those funds to.
I know when they first started legalizing like Colorado, they're like, well, all this money's going to go to education, and fine, send it to schools. But there's a lot of other programs in the state that need support.
Do you know one that I would like to see if our legislators or those in the executive areas of Frankfurt are listening, if we ever got there, if we were getting the billions that we're seeing, not only other programs, but what if we did look at cleaner, like a high-speed railway type of system to where someone who lives in eastern Kentucky could hop on one and be like in Lexington or central Kentucky in like 45 minutes? Because there's not enough jobs there. People here could then commute to Cincinnati, where they hop on. It's kind of a more greener type of thing that we can talk about, whether that be like high-speed magnetic railways or whatever Europe and Japan does. But there's ideas where we got people that are so far removed from high-speed internet, and I know that's something that's being worked on, but this would be something that folks who aren't able to drive 2 hours to work but could hop on and be. And I mean, we've got folks here that need employees and can't keep
People
employees.
don't consider the fact that, like, when you think about the American experience from the perspective of like LA and New York, you don't need a car. I don't know about LA, but like New York, you don't need a car in New York. You're almost better off if you don't.
Right.
But when we are talking about like the average expenses of a person in middle America, they don't factor in the cost of a car or car insurance, gas, the whole like massive extra bit of cost that it comes onto a person's life just to simply be able to get from point A to point B, because we have so massively failed as from a mass transit perspective. And the failure of public rail in this country is still laying on the back of the Civil War.
That's right.
Because we destroyed a bunch of trains in the South, train tracks in the South that we never put back. Because I don't know why. Meanwhile, we're talking about transcontinental railroads and stuff where...
But they can't even get the rail built from LA to Vegas. By the way, I don't know if you know, this has been like a 30-year trying to get...
I think, yeah, I'm not super aware, but I knew it was a thing. It was an episode of The Simpsons once.
We got it as close, I think it's...
Has it been that long?
It's about... I think right now it's about an hour and a half outside LA.
So
you have to drive an hour and a half into... like basically just to the edge of the desert, and then you can leave your car there, and it's the dumbest.
But that's like Bill Maher. I like Bill Maher. I like Bill Maher a lot, and maybe not him as a person, but like a show, because he has people. Whatever. He was trying to get solar panels put on his house because I want to go green. I've got money. I'm going to put it up. It took him, I think it was over 1,000 days before the city or the state in California would permit him to like hook it all up. Wow. And so if that is a thing in just that little microcosm, I can only imagine what something like dragging trains through the desert would be like out there. Yeah,
the bureaucracy in Los Angeles is, the people have great ideas and we vote on stuff that we think is great, and then the bureaucrats make it not happen. It's infuriating.
But if your whole job in government is to figure out how to fuck the will of the people, then you need a new job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, county of Los Angeles, into 50% of the total budget of the county goes to the police department. And I don't know how many movies you've seen on how corrupt the LAPD is, but then they also took 45% of the entire education budget and gave that to the LAPD to patrol our public schools.
Look,
so it's yeah.
Did
the
you all have
bureaucracy in Los
DARE?
Angeles
I'm trying to figure out when DARE started.
Oh, we had DARE.
Drugs are really expensive?
Yeah. As a kid, pre-DARE, I knew nothing, cared nothing, gave no shits. You couldn't have told me what a drug was. I didn't care. Post-DARE, we're trying to figure out what everything is and try it before this is 5th grade. So, like, your money that you're spending as drug abuse resistance education was hugely wasted. And then my generation suffers from it tremendously because they followed that up with, like, opioids. Here, have some candy.
Yeah, they came up with that and a commercial that reminded our parents to hug us in the same year. I'm just saying, like,
I don't know if do you know where your children are?
I don't know if not where. Have you ever? No,
I know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about. Do you know?
It seems like I remember that.
was actually a commercial in the 80s that like had to remind parents to like hug us.
Hug
And
your
to,
kids.
like, yeah, hug
They could use a hug. They could use a hug.
Don't just scream at them. It was literally a commercial of like parents screaming at their crying children and then children alone in their rooms. And then be like, parents, you should give her a hug today.
But I mean, that's responsible parents. You got to yell at them, then you got timeout, and then you got the whole like, I'm sorry, I love you, but you fucked up.
But our parents forgot the
hugging part.
The
Yeah,
hugging part.
no.
Do we think that came out of like the time before us, where maybe they came from the time where parents,
Yes.
the Valium age, like,
Yes.
and those sort of things? Yeah, is that where
The
they came
time
from?
before time.
Yeah.
My parents are of the Reefer Madness generation.
Okay.
So like, I had to have a whole conversation with my dad once about like, dude, Reefer Madness isn't real. That movie is bullshit. Really? That was his answer. Was really? Not at all. No, nothing about that entire experience was correct. Like, you know, my dad is still under the DOT supervision for his job, so I'm not gonna like secretly give him brownies at Christmas or nothing. But the day they're all like, don't have to do it. I'm getting them all. Every one of them. I'm gonna.
Oh, I could out my dad right now about some shit.
I bet you've got some good stories.
Well, no. So my dad used to. Oh, my dad got so mad at me one time about. I don't remember what the fight was, but it wound up with him coming to my room. I had a huge collection of very expensive Jerome Baker bongs. I don't know if you guys know if that Jerome Baker is a thing out here, but he's a glass artist back in California, and he would. Every bong was one of a kind and hand blown and blah blah blah, and they had lizards and sunflowers. Dad got pissed at me for something, come into my room, opened my closet, started smashing my bongs up. You know,
That's like that, because he was the dad in fucking Tenacious D and Pick a Destiny.
yeah, that was not far from like who.
Oh my
really
God,
as
that
a
was
dad.
real.
But so he's smashing my bongs and he's screaming about you're a pothead, blah blah blah. It's cut to like 10 years later, we're in Vegas, we're getting drunk. I tell him I'm gonna move to Beechwood Canyon, which is a neighborhood in LA, and he goes, "Oh, that's where when I first moved to LA, that's where I lived when I was selling acid to the Beach Boys." I said, "I'm sorry, what?"
Excuse me, sir.
So yeah, after getting mad at me for
That's
smoking
why
weed,
that music was good.
he then confessed to me that he was dealing acid
Wow.
in the late 60s.
So did you
That's
ask
why
for a
the
new
Beach
bong?
Boys were good.
Well,
don't.
no, I didn't get a new. I think I just probably stole money out of the safe and went and bought one. Shh. I never did that. But that was so. Haha, you're outed now.
Yeah.
Acid dealing. No, he was in a band at that time called Popcorn Blizzard and the Flying Circus.
Sounds awesome.
And they all dressed up in different character outfits, and yeah, I don't know.
Sounds amazing.
I've seen some pictures. I've never heard the actual music. I don't know that it exists.
Well, he was just talking about when his dad and everyone gets kind of out from under DOT or whatever, you're going to hook them up. So should that lead into
What are we leading into?
to what's your preferred method? I know you so you're
Well,
talking
on that
so-
note, the DOT
Yeah.
recently, I don't know about how recently, but it's been this year, they're going to start doing mouth swabs for like marijuana screenings for your DOT physicals, because that's, reasonable. That's 24 hours. If I smoke it on Tuesday, I'm not still stoned on Thursday.
Right.
And so there is some movement in that direction, but anyway,
I still don't know how, but yeah, no. So yeah, we have other questions, but this is why I love the show, because we just ramble about stuff.
and that's great.
That's what it's for.
We learn something new too each time.
We do. So we know you're a chef. Do you prefer edibles or smoking?
Not even at all. I am a smoker, man. I started smoking cigarettes at a fairly young age. Like my siblings and I are fairly spread out. Like my oldest sister was 21 when I was born. The next one was 12, and then me. So when my sister was in high school, like you could still buy cigarettes at 16 at that point. So I'm stealing cigarettes all the time. And she used to tell me, she's like, if you stole one, I didn't really care, but you got to where you would steal like half a pack. And I was like, I just got to be preemptive, I don't know what I want to see again. anyway, so like I've always been a smoker, but then about 25, like I just got tired of smoking cigarettes, man. And the only time I would smoke was when I was at work, because you could dependably get a break. If you were a smoker, they'd leave you alone for an entire Newport 100 for an entire one. But if you didn't have a cigarette in your hand and you've been out there 2 minutes, you're in trouble.
Right.
So I was like, I told my boss, I was like, dude, I'm quitting smoking cigarettes. I'm still smoking. I'm smoking a joint, or for me, it's always been blunts, but I'm smoking. If you don't like it, fire me. I don't care, but this is what it is. And nobody ever cared. But no, I religiously smoke blunts on blunts on blunts. I'm
Nice.
Snoop Dogg every day. One day, I'm going to figure out how to like really test my mettle against a person like Snoop.
He's quitting.
I mean, he's a fucking
Well-
100. He needs to quit smoking.
Well, he came out later and said he was high when he said that. He was just kind of like,
I've said, I think I need to quit sometimes. You know? Like, my wife probably would tell you she prefers edibles. I call bullshit. I don't know. She also probably doesn't really smoke weed when we're in separate parts of the world.
Fair.
But yeah, no, I have all of this like idea about cooking with it, but because I live in a place that's not readily accessible, I can't go to a dispensary and say, hey, I need 2 ounces of trim because I want to confit some chicken.
Right.
I want pot fried chicken, confit it with the weed. It gets into the fat. Then you fry it in hemp oil. And then you put keef on it when you season it after the fact. You just roll it in some keef and then put it on a plate.
It's called the Lebanese chicken.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I want to make that, but no, I don't get an opportunity to all that often because I don't. I'm not in a position to. Now, I will say we kept I guess I can say it. We kept a jar of oil, like it wasn't butter, but it was like coconut oil. We would keep it on the food truck when we were at like Moonshiners and stuff, and for an extra little bit, I'd put something on something. Hash oil on pizza is fabulous.
What? Did I not know this, or were you just doing it to my food without me asking?
I think I was just doing it to your food without asking. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I was like, hey, you want it special? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, done.
I think didn't know what that meant. I thought you just were like putting some extra seasoning on
It
it.
just makes sense, right? Because if you're going to be having stoner food should also get you stoned. So you want more stoner food. It's just a vicious cycle, but from a business perspective,
I feel like that also might have been like helping cure my hangovers when I was coming over for breakfast.
I watched a dude. He came up to the food truck, and I think this was a Moonshiners at Homegrown still.
Okay.
I think we were at Homegrown. Came up to the food truck, incoherently ordered like 3 things, and then he sat down at a table and just starts scarfing it up like Luffy, and like stuffing it in his mouth. And I look up, and then he's asleep in his food, and he's sitting back up and he's eating, and he's asleep again. And he gets up and he comes over and he's like, dude, you just saved my life. I don't even know.
Right.
I'm like, that's what I'm here for, man. That's the tender victuals for the recovery.
It was absolutely delicious.
Yeah. But that's how I make things up anyway. Like, all of my best dishes have been like, all right, I'm going to get high and go to the store and just see what happens.
See, I can't do that because one of the last times I got really high and went to the store, I forgot what went into tacos. And I couldn't read.
Now, my brain doesn't forget food like that, but I'll wholesale forget why I came in here in the first place, and then I've got a cart full of shit that I
had
to
to
build.
Google pictures of tacos and study the pictures to figure out what the ingredients were that I needed.
I have done that where I'm like, hold on, there's something I'm forgetting. Oh, yeah, all right, it's this. I got to go back to the other side of the store.
Yep.
Those are the best ones when you're in like Kroger or Meijer and you're like, because they set it up so it's a flow and you flow around, you come back, you check out, you leave. Not me, man. Not me. I'll go produce, and then I get this, and I get over here and find this, and then by the time I get to the milk, I remember something I forgot in produce.
And then
oh,
you
shit,
have
I
an
forgot
eye.
the cheese.
Do you get like?
The worst fight that Chill, and really the only fight Chill and I have ever had because I go to Trader Joe's like 3-4 times a year because, oh, it's new, it's seasonal, what's new. And I'm going to wander around and look because they put things in red. Cookies are above the frozen meat. And, you know,
Things make no sense in Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's is not for the faint of heart. And so I'm like looking at all the different nuts of the holiday season or whatever. And he's like, I got to go. And I think he's doing a bit. Like, I think he's just being like, and do what, and he finally says, give me the key. And he leaves. And I spend another 20 minutes probably in the store wandering before I even get to the checkout. Finally, I get to the car. Don't ever fucking do that to me again. And I was like, oh, what did I do?
I tell Israel that all the time. I can't take you anywhere. I'll go in here and I'm like, I have a list. I'm going to be here 5 minutes, but if I bring you with me, it's going to take 2 hours.
Yeah, but we're much better now, because either he knows we're going, like we went to Jungle Gyms.
That's what my next Jeff. Have you been to Jungle Gyms?
So great.
You need just go to Cincinnati, get a hotel, plan 2 days.
Yeah.
Because we spent about 2.5 hours in there, and I think we only saw about half of it.
What do we have to do to get them to bring one down here?
I walked until I like physically was in pain. Like I was like, dude, my back hurts. I can't. I either have to go get one of those carts, and I don't think they have any, or we gotta get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. But he knew I'm going to spend 25 minutes looking at cheese.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And then the hot sauce section, you're like, I don't.
Right. But yesterday we went Thanksgiving shopping and I had a very specific list. I had it organized by section. I have the produce, dairy, pantry. And so we were very organized and we were in and out in less than an hour.
See, I try to do that.
For the entirety of Thanksgiving.
Depending on the store I'm going, I'll remember where things are at, and I'll be like, I'm going to do this in order. But then the thing you're talking about, you pick up one thing, and you're like, oh, I got an idea that I could do with that.
Especially if you're making a recipe in your buggy.
Yeah,
right.
And it's like, I got to go back over there. But, if anyone out there is listening with Jungle Gyms up there, because that's owned up in that area, what do we got to get, like a change.org
There's
going
only
or
2
what?
that
I
exist.
know, but we need to get one here.
And how Cincinnati, like
It's
what?
not that far, but
it's not like geographically located, reasonable for like if we were a port city, right? And there's an ocean wharf that brings African produce across the ocean. It makes sense. But no, we're in Cincinnati and like Eastgate. I don't know.
It started as a farm stand.
It's brilliant, man.
Jungle Jim was a farmer, and he had his own farm. I studied the history of Jungle Gyms. Why is it?
Because it wasn't very African.
Oh, yeah. The Africa section was a little questionable.
But the like open air produce side of
Yes.
it, that's a lot more like tropical. It's a lot of Asian, but it's a little bit of like African. And when I say African, I'm mostly talking about like northern Mediterranean area.
Yeah.
Because our concept of what is like Central African food is pretty skewed.
Oh, yeah. No, I was talking about the actual, like the
But
pantry where
the
they have like
yeah.
some jollof and things like that. But then right next to the jollof, I got very confused for a second because they had Sylvia's waffle mix. So for those of you who don't know, Sylvia's is a restaurant in Harlem. And then right next to that, they had the Louisiana,
Why
cage.
do I
and
not have branded food? Oh my God!
But it
It's
took me a minute
restaurant
to
in
realize
Harlem
that
selling
the
pancake mix.
that the aisle labeled African cuisine that did start with actual African cuisine was just all black people food from from various countries and regions of the United States.
But it's like when you go to Kroger and it's like the Asian section and it's this little bitty and it's 5 brands of soy sauce and I'm
Right.
like, there's more to it. Like I need right now. You can't find sambal. You can't find sriracha.
No, that's
and
awful.
knockoff sriracha is not the fucking same.
No, it's not.
Do
It's not.
you know why about sriracha?
Isn't it a different pepper?
What I understand about it is it's a specific pepper that grows on these farms that they had relationships with in Mexico, and there was a drought and also maybe a flood, and it like killed their pepper crop for the year.
That's actually that's what they want you to know.
Oh, okay.
So,
God, if
See,
it's
I
worse.
thought it was that.
they got in the neighbors, the neighborhood. It was the whatever was
I remember
being
that.
extruded into the air from the factory.
They started suing them like the first year they were open.
It was burning people's eyes and lungs.
Whoa.
And it was a whole thing. Yeah, and now
Wow.
it's like $100 a bottle. I got a bottle in the back of my fridge. if
you can.
want to come
There's
over
an
for a cup.
Asian market in Lexington.
There is.
Next to.
Don't tell everybody.
No. They need to know. It's next to Chuck E. Cheese. That's all I'm going to tell you. They have
They
sriracha.
can go to that one all
but
day
it's
long.
$10 a bottle. And no, I went in that. We took my kids, and like, we haven't really talked about my kids. I have 7 kids. I am a traveling circus everywhere I go. I don't know how I'm sane or have my hair.
I don't think I've ever been hanging out with Israel, your wife, where she was not pregnant.
Yeah.
Because I've only
so-
lived in Lexington for 7 years.
So Kyra will be a year old next week. No, not next week. The week after, December 3rd. This is the first full year, because I think there might have been a full year between Jericho and Denver, but there was not between anybody else.
But I don't think I've seen Israel since like since 2019.
Really? Pre-COVID?
Yeah.
Woof. We
Right?
stopped. COVID killed all enthusiasm I had for food trucking. I was already
that.
kind of like, I don't want to cook like this anymore. I want to I don't know what I want to do. That's why I'm trying to teach high school, I guess. Right. But yeah, COVID killed all enthusiasm I had. And then like the free money made me super lazy.
Yeah, that'll happen.
And so fast forward to now, we don't food truck. I don't even like go out like we did. I don't think I've been to Moonshiners in 2 years. Not
Same.
even as a person.
Samesies. So what got you started on your culinary journey then?
Man, if you had asked me at like 6 or 7 what I was going to be as an adult, I would have told you that I was going to be a chef with a bunch of kids.
I love that.
And now I am a chef with a bunch of kids, and like I don't know what I'm going to do with my life anymore.
But
I
love
I
that
got
for
to the
you.
point where the voice in my head was like, "This is what you're meant to do," and now I'm here, and I'm like, "All right, I'm good."
Well, I'm going to
Other
ask
than
you.
the kids, but like they're great.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that maybe, as you think about them, you'll be inspired and you'll figure
Yeah,
things
no,
out.
I still really enjoy the like cooking for people. Like I really like it from the like private chef perspective, where you're only feeding a few people. I don't want to stand on a line and listen, to a ticket printer anymore. I used to have nightmares about the sound of a ticket printer. And still to this day, I occasionally can like hear it
Yeah.
and like,
No, I am in love with. I love cooking food for my friends and family. During COVID, when everything was sort of imploding, I started the cooking channel. And back then, my dad was asking if I wanted to, open my own restaurant. I was like, absolutely not. I worked in the food industry for a very brief period of my life when I moved to Kentucky to make ends meet, and I will never go back.
I could see doing like from a bed and breakfast kind of perspective. So like,
A bud and breakfast.
yes. Okay. 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 My dad is from a farm in Virginia that my grandfather moved on to when he was 6 months old in like 1912.
Wow.
In Virginia, they hand out century farm certificates. So if you've been a family farm and continuous operation for 100 years, you get a fancy little plaque. And we have one of those, all that. It's like 200 acres. The Holston River runs right through the middle, like road, grandma's house. Dad, there was, I think, 11 of them. They lived in this little bitty house, I don't think they had running toilets until the 70s,
Wow.
Go back now, of course, it's different now, but I want to go move to the river. I want to like build a little greenhouse, grow some weed. I don't want to be like, massive. I don't want hundreds of acres of pot. I just like maybe an acre or two, and we have a house that's more than a couple hundred years or more than 100 years old that is there that I would like to see as a bed and breakfast. And, maybe not breakfast because I'm not a morning person, but like bud and dinner, but whatever. But feed people that way and showcase the farm where we're from. And these are all things that I want to do. But then the old generation is like, we don't want to see you grow any weed on this farm. And I'm like, God, fucking God.
I think it's a great idea. I would come visit.
I love it. I mean, it's very much, it sounds a lot. I've never been, but like Blackberry Farms in Tennessee, and then you would know the chef in upstate New York who his whole purpose is to grow all these heirloom.
It's like Blue Stonehill.
Yeah,
something.
where he's like growing heritage wheats to make
Dude,
ancient
there is some
sourdoughs.
fascinating stuff when people like latch on to like trying to hold on to the heritage, the heirloomness of it all. You know, I have a philosophy or a theory that gluten-free being the fad that it is now, how did all of thousands of years of human civilization, right? The thing that brought us out of the fucking Stone Age was the fact that we decided to grow crops. And one of the first ones we grow was grain. And so all of human civilization is more or less based on the fact that we collectively decided we could grow grass and eat it. Okay. How is it since like 1993, oh God, you can't eat bread anymore? I think it's because we have hyper industrialized
That's exactly
the
right.
way that we've industrialized the grain. So, and not, I'm not talking about the like processing and the milling of the wheat down to just the germ and getting rid of the bran and whole wheat versus white bread. I'm not talking about all that. But like we've industrialized the way we grow it. We industrialized the way we process it. We've industrialized the yeast. More specifically, you think about the fact that most yeast you buy is a specific strain, and it is usually bred as a volume multiplier over whatever it is that yeast tends to leave behind. And so we have sterilized our food to a point that we don't have the gut bacterias that are capable of handling, whether it's milk or bread or all the things that like all of humanity in perpetuity has survived on up till now, that suddenly like, oh God, we got to make all our pasta out of chickpeas. Fuck off.
Well, and you know, it's interesting because I personally had to take gluten out of my diet. And I went through all kinds of things, and it wasn't that I was horribly sick or anything. I just didn't feel well. And I went as far as having hair tests and all these different tests, and everything came back going, you know, you really should look at gluten. And it's really interesting because I took it out of my diet. My life changed.
Sure.
And I feel better. If I eat it, I feel horrible. My body don't want to break it down. Now, what you're saying, I mean, look at our corn. You know, we have genetically modified corn so that we can spray it with substances to kill bugs and all the things trying to eat it, to the point now that our bodies do not recognize that as it is in its natural form. We're not breaking
I don't know if you've ever seen the video where they take standard corn, put it on a spike, and then they take heirloom corn, put it on a spike, and they leave it out for the squirrels. And the squirrels will decimate
the
heirloom corn, and they will almost not, they have to be like hungry before they start messing with the other stuff. And I'm not to say that like your corn producers in the country don't still battle pest problems. I'm sure there's plenty of mice that'll eat your fucking corn. But when we turned our food into a business and we started doing it by the hundreds and millions of acres, we removed the ability, like the hyper localization of our food is the thing that's going to make our food the healthiest for us.
Yes, I agree.
That's like how people talk about, well, if you have allergies, eat honey from where you're at.
Yeah.
From the year before.
Right.
And it's not really the same, but I've heard like people that have peanut allergies and they've some work in that says, okay, 5 peanuts will make me go into anaphylaxis, but 4 won't. So today I'm going to eat 4 peanuts. Tomorrow I'm going to eat 4 peanuts. But on Friday, I'm going to eat 5 peanuts, and I'm not going to go into anaphylaxis anymore. And it's because you have this tolerance. I think a similar thing is true of gluten for people in this country, but I think it's because of the industrialization of our food. And I think that if we were growing wheat locally and we were still taking our wheat to a stone mill and grinding it by water power and all this shit, or even the people that have like little mills in their kitchen, I wonder if
Well, there is someone who did do a test. So there are these nuns. I don't know if they're in the Pacific Northwest. I can't remember if they're Northern California, Oregon, or Washington, but they're somewhere right along there. And they have been making sourdough from the same.
Starter.
They don't call them mother, but starter. Thank you. From the same starter for over 100 years. And a doctor took their sourdough and they'd like have it in caves. It's the weirdest, like cheese. But they have this sourdough in caves and they bake it, blah, blah, blah. And a doctor took their sourdough and tested it on people with gluten intolerance. And I think even someone with, what's the actual? Celiac disease. And it had no effect.
Yeah. And so I lost my train of thought, but it was like the thing that makes sourdough special. Do you remember the commercials for San Francisco sourdough when we were a kid? The thing that makes San Francisco sourdough special is the yeast that exists in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So you can take the San Francisco sourdough recipe and make it in Kentucky. It's not San Francisco sourdough; it's Kentucky sourdough. We don't feed and our gut biome, and we don't take in the natural things that we need as much as we used to because we over sterilize our lives. I mean, we're post COVID. Everybody's bathing in hand sanitizer now.
Well, and that's true. And growing up, I spent most of my life with my grandparents. My grandmother, we had fresh sourdough bread weekly. There was a starter always on the counter. And now I make my own kimchi. I mean, that's really great for the gut, and I think that's something that we should talk more about too. And as a community, eating more fermented foods. But I do agree. I think the industrial side of where those things have went. I know there are some Americans purchasing small amounts of flour from Europe, and they're able to eat the products they make from that. And that's something that I think you're correct. I think that when we start producing our foods as close to home and locally, the better off we'll be. So.
Yeah. So, all of that being said, I know how do we have to? Are we done?
I mean, we're at 110.
So, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
You asked 5.
We have our camera has to cool down. It gets too hot.
Ah, yeah.
But because I'm loving this conversation, and I don't want it to end.
I can carry on all day, man.
So let's. All right, so I'm curious, because as a chef, this is one that I always, and not that I by any means am a chef, but I'm a nerd for chefs. So Grana Shots, and we our big wedding dinner we ate at Joel Robuchon in Vegas.
Have you eaten at one of Grant Shots?
I have not eaten at one of Grana Shots restaurants.
I want to go. I'm kind of curious about it. I want to go. I don't know that I could ever really afford it, but like the idea of it seems, because it's not food. You know what I mean? Like I'm from here. Like my grandma is how I got started. Like the plate of food is what I'm. And then I'm a stoner, so I do like stoner shit. But
I think that's why I love chefs like Grana Shots. But and Ferran Adria. I just got Ferran Adria's cookbook, The Family Meal. If you haven't seen that, so it's all of the family meals that were cooked and served inside El Bullier for the staff.
Okay.
So while he's serving, spherification of mango,
but they're doing bolo in the back.
Yeah, but the way that he set up the cookbook, it's a photo album.
It's awesome.
It's very cool. But anyway, so the question: who is one chef that inspires you? I know your food is, you're go Kentucky boy, cooking stoner food.
Yeah,
it's delicious. It's hearty. Who's a chef that inspires you that would surprise us?
Man, that's honestly not a great question for me because nobody springs to mind, right?
Fair.
Not that a person that I can name because all right, my philosophy has always been about grandmas. So if I could pick any chef alive or dead that I can feed right now, it's my grandma, hands down.
I love that.
I don't want to talk to anybody else. I want to see my grandma. But I feel like the people that you can learn the most from, and while these chefs, these well-known chefs that are doing this fancy shit on a plate, that's all well and good. That's an experience. It's art. Is it really like a family meal? Are you feeding people
right
Is there
Okay.
love on that plate?
Is there love in the plate? Okay. So I think that if you're going to learn to cook from somebody, the way to go about it is grandma's.
Fair.
So, like, my grandma taught me biscuits and gravy. Maybe it wasn't the best biscuits and gravy in the world. I don't know, but I'll fight you if you tell me otherwise. I think that if I'm going to learn to make tortillas, I want to learn to make it from the little old lady in Mexico that's been cooking in the same clay pot for the last 60 years. If I'm going to learn to make the best rice, I want some little old lady in Asia to teach me how to do it over a fire. I want the person that's been making it every day with love for their people forever.
That's awesome.
And because
I
that's
love
where
that.
that's my grandma made soup beans for my grandpa every day. As an adult, I don't really like soup beans, but that's one of the recipes I'd pull. And I think that most of your famous chefs would probably say something along the same lines if they like really thought about it. Who gave them the most love on a plate? You ever seen a movie called Like Water for Chocolate?
Yeah.
And how she could put her emotion into her food, and like, she made this man fall in love with her, but then her sister stole the man, and then she killed her sister with the food, and blah,
Right.
blah. I think that's how that movie went, ish. But you can instill great emotion into your food, and if you're putting any amount of love into what you're doing, that translates over to the nourishment that it then provides a person. Food for fun is awesome.
Right.
But we are tasked with like food for survival. But food for survival doesn't need to be shitty.
Yeah. No.
It doesn't
that's
need
right.
to taste bad. You can still have amazing flavor and it not be, super convoluted and hard to arrive at. So
I love that. And I think that the Thomas Kellers and the Granachats and the Robichons of the world would probably say that I think that you have to,
I'd rather smoke weed with those people than
know
cook
how
for
to
them.
make a great burger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the menu.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that movie where, if you can make a great burger, then eventually you can get
That movie
to...
that movie stressed me out.
It was really...
That movie stressed me out. But have you seen The Bear?
I watched the first season.
Okay, so is there a second season yet?
Yeah.
Is it out?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so behind. Oh my god.
I think it
It came out over the summer, didn't it?
yeah, I think that's about around the end of
Oh,
August.
whatever.
I haven't watched the second season.
He's getting ready to be in a movie I'm very excited about. The guy that plays the bear and Pip or Lip from Shameless.
Yeah, from Shameless.
He's getting ready to be Carrie Von Erich in the movie The Iron Claw. They're
right
making a
on.
movie about the Von Erichs. I'm a wrestling nerd. That's my thing. I love wrestling, bro. But they're making a movie about the Von Erich family, and it's a tragic story, really. But this movie looks so good. But the same kid that's in The Bear is Carrie Von Erich.
So knowing that, the grandmas, that if you want to know how to make tortillas, you're gonna go somewhere.
That's who I want to learn it from.
So who, if you could cook for any three? Now, see, my question was any three celebrities. If you could cook for any three, and when I say celebrity, it could be Edgar Allan Poe. It could be, I don't mean the Kardashians necessarily.
I mean, as a wrestling nerd, I always want to let's feed the Undertaker, man. But I don't know. That's a hard question because there's a lot of people that I think would be really cool to hang out with. And if I'm going to cook for them, they have to be able to smoke weed because that's just part of the experience. You just a blunt and a Belgian waffle or whatever. I don't know.
It is hard because I have people that come to
I
mind.
read that question when you sent it to me, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to answer that because there are some people that maybe come to mind, but
Like for me, one of them is Anthony Bourdain, but then I get so nervous about the idea. What if Anthony Bourdain decides my food sucks?
yeah, I don't know if I want to feed him.
That's what
I would like to follow him around and be him on,
Yeah.
I want to hang out with Bourdain. I don't know if I can take the stress of the critique.
Of having fed him.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
and the
that.
same for most famous people.
So let's go by. Let's say you've got a table full of grandmas. All right, let's do that. Let's my grandma.
Well, I can say
your
the most
grandma.
famous person I think I've fed is probably Shatner, but he used to come in Azure a lot. Yeah, your face. Yeah, we fed. He's all right.
Sure.
He's all right.
He's fine.
He's fine. Him and his wife used to come into Azure a lot when I was like fresh out of culinary school, and then like I fed like R.L. Stein that way one time.
That's kind of cool.
You know, I've fed Guy Fieri. That kind of counts, but like,
It does. Yeah.
yeah.
Josh was featured on Guy's Grocery Games
Whoop whoop.
twice, 3 times.
Twice.
Okay.
Well, one was a standalone episode. One was a tournament.
Nice.
All the money's gone, and it's fine. But
So you got your grandma, it's Israel's grandma, whatever, you know.
I would rather just have you guys at a table.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
What are you cooking for us?
Oh.
See, that's what I was.
Oh, I wouldn't shut up long enough for you to finish. I see where this is going.
What I wanted to. What are you cooking for your own grandma?
So, the first thing that popped in my mind was bear, because
Because I asked you to cook me bear a few months ago.
well, no, bear's one of my favorite things to eat.
Okay.
So my uncle, my uncle didn't kill it, but somebody killed a bear down in Virginia, Family Farm. Somebody killed a bear. They called my uncle to come clean it. Mm-hmm. Well, I ended up with like, I don't know, a third of this bear over the course of a year. It is easily one of the best meats. Like,
What would you compare that to? I've not had bear. I've had ostrich, and I've had
ostrich is really red,
yes.
and really, really lean.
Yeah.
And people talk about bear being greasy. I don't find greasy meat to be a bad thing. Greasy just means fatty. However, anything tastes like what it was eating before it died. Anything. If you have grass-fed beef, there's a flavor difference.
Yes.
I'm a fan of grass-fed, grain-finished. You know, like last 2 weeks, like right before they die, like feed them a bunch of corn or whatever. But then, like, I've had some meat that the feed that they fed them had a particular, I won't say flavor because I didn't eat it, but like I know how it smelled. And that really like sweet graininess made it into the meat after the fact. And that meat was not super pleasant. So that being said, bears that are eating well, you know, a full happy summer forest, they taste differently than the ones that have been eaten out of the dump all the time.
I've heard comparisons of bear to like wild boar.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. I still find pork is its own thing, but they're, in terms of the way their fat behaves, it's a porcine fat. So yes, that's a very accurate comparison. But yeah, man, I want to make bear barbacoa. So like
That sounds
taco
amazing.
truck
I
barbacoa.
love barbacoa.
Taco truck barbacoa. There's a taco truck. He sits in the gas station parking lot at the corner of Broadway and New Circle. That's my guy.
A question from my husband that I know he's thinking that. Is bear cheeks a thing?
It stands to reason you can eat anything. I mean, if you get to it, I would imagine there's probably that muscle there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Because like pork cheek is a thing.
Right.
And there are some fish that have cheek meat that's quite good.
Cow cheek.
And cow-
I've had cow cheek. Cabeza.
We like, so that food truck or that taco truck, he has cabeza. It's the corner of Broadway and New Circle Road. It's
Okay.
that gas station parking lot.
Right before you go under the railroad track.
Right before you go on, yeah.
I'm going to check it out.
Tacos El Girasol, I
Okay.
think is what they call it. Good luck ever looking them up. You can't find them. They moved on me one time. It took me 2 months to find them. He has cabeza pretty regularly, lingua, all that. Their barbacoa is just,
Okay, I'm going
damn,
over there.
it's special.
Nice.
So, with that being said, I was on a kick about trying to make that and replicate it. And I've had some winners and I've had some losers. But doing bear that way is really, really, really good. Just a little bit of cloves, little bit of cinnamon, and a lot of chili.
That sounds dope.
And it is, yes. But man, I don't know. If I saw my grandma at a table right now, I don't think I could keep my shit together long enough to cook food. I would be a solid mess for at least an hour.
I mean, yeah, we're saying grandma comes to visit the next day. You're too,
No, but
I feel you.
but yeah, no, I just like sitting around with people that appreciate good music and appreciate good food and appreciate good weed.
I love that.
And I think that's the secret to a happy life.
And then we have just one last question for you. In all things, in life and culinary and whatever, what's the one greatest piece of advice you've ever been given that you like to share?
Season visually. Season visually. Don't worry about measuring. Like, look at it, feel it, sprinkle it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dash, baby.
Bam. Season visually.
I like it.
If you, as a person, want to just grasp good basic culinary technique and like understanding, salt, fat, acid, heat, salt, fat, acid, heat.
Salt.
Samanosarat, I think is her name. I'm never gonna say that right. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it.
Is it Netflix? Is
There's a show on Netflix, but her cookbook,
Okay.
her book is special in just how relatable it makes everything. It's not like recipe books. You know, it's not like a Julia Child recipe book where there's, you pick a recipe and make it. It's a long conversation about how those four things interact with each other in a dish to create the perfect balance. And that's one book that made me better. The bit on acid improved my seasoning game 100%. You don't know how much a little bit of vinegar makes the world in a dish.
So she breaks it down kind of like the science, kind of a little bit like I always like to watch an Alton Brown just because he breaks down.
I like Alton. My culinary school education was largely Alton Brown videos. I paid tuition to sit in a room with a bunch of adults and watch Alton Brown. Okay. And it turned out okay. And I got to see him live. He has a live show. My sister bought me tickets one year, and he essentially had a giant easy bake oven on the stage, and he made pizza. You could feel the heat from way in the back where I sat.
I'm a huge fan of Thomas Keller's masterclass.
Yeah.
For that, I don't know if you ever, he has that there's that app masterclass or whatever you want to call it, streaming channel. And during COVID, I bought it just to watch Keller because he goes through just root vegetables and eggs and this and that. And
Keller is easy to listen to.
Yeah.
Keller's easy to listen to. Not everybody's easy to listen to. Whatever. I'm picking on Wolfgang, but like Wolfgang has a lot of really good knowledge to impart.
Yes.
But he's not always easy to hear it from. Ramsey's the same way.
Keller is very...
Fieri was not that way. He was very easy to talk to.
But Keller is very calm. And there's very much, even though obviously he has these very elevated restaurant, French Laundry, and we've been to a couple of his restaurants out west. But there's a calmness, and there's also... He's teaching, when he does things like his masterclass, he's not teaching you a recipe. He's teaching you techniques.
Yeah. Yeah, that's everything. Because recipe doesn't mean
go
shit.
And play.
The seasoning, and then like, unless you're like baking and you have to get your ratios correct, cooking is by feel.
Yeah.
It's you, and you either understand the like zhuzh of it or you don't.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between like, I don't know, Cracker Barrel mashed potatoes and Bob Evans mashed potato. I don't know.
And
But
that's really like you were talking about your grandma, but that was one of the things my grandma was like touch, taste, and smell as you're doing it. And to me, that is the love, you know.
yeah, you got to taste everything. And for me, cooking with music was a huge part of my food truck experience. I had speakers on the front. I'm playing loud and not always tasteful music. I went to a Red, White, and Boom event in Richmond, and the band was subpar. It was a subpar, terrible country cover band. Whatever. By the end of the day, I was really salty because everybody was eating the like $2 carne tacos or like corn dogs. Everybody was spending money on corn dogs here, and I was like barely breaking even. So the end of the night gets up, and I start cleaning up. I turn my speakers up and start playing "To Pimp a Butterfly" by Kendrick Lamar as loud as I can to like a field full of Jackson County.
I love it.
It was amazing.
We should introduce you to a song that we just discovered today called "Santa Claus Was a Black Man." Is a black man,
I think I've heard maybe.
and it's
I'm gonna listen to it in the car.
it's sung by a 5-year-old, and it was recorded in 1973, and it's awesome, and you should play it.
I had people so mad. Like, okay, my kids were in front of my food truck, like playing, and I kept having people coming up here like, "You need to turn that off. There's kids playing." I'm like, "Well, those are my kids, so you can mind your business." One dude went and got the sheriff.
Oh my God.
One dude went and got the sheriff and brought the sheriff over to my truck to be like, he's playing vulgar music. And to be fair, by the time we got through King Kunta and into the song where he's like, "This dick ain't free," everybody I was loving my life. The dudes that were selling lemonade next to me were howling with laughter, but the white people in the room were so upset.
It's a thing of beauty.
But-
Sometimes it really is.
Music in your food is.
I
It
love
doesn't
it.
always have to be like offensive.
That might have been what happened when I was at my chili attempt. It needed more music.
Driftwood Gypsy has made many good dishes in my day. I'll just say that. That album has made lots of good food on that food truck.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
so much
and
for
hanging
having
out with
me.
us today.
Yes.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
And talking, and we appreciate you, and
I will come and shoot the shit with you guys anytime.
we'll definitely have to do it again.
Yes.
We might even do an episode where we cook together.
Yes, please. Let's do all that.
It would
That's
be amazing.
exciting.
We do have a full kitchen in the back that is free for our use. But anyway,
Oh, do we?
so thanks. Is there anything? No, there's nothing. We can edit this
No.
part out.
No, I don't. I don't have any gratuitous plugs. If you want to order freeze-dried candy, you can.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, look me up on Instagram at Valley Bridge Trading Co.
Valley Bridge Trading Co.
But
awesome.
if you want to learn about, my life as a chef or the food truck journey, that is at Dine Curiously.
Nice. And like I can say that I know fully from experience that if you dig freeze-dried candy, I don't know why that was a mouthful.
It is.
Josh's are super delicious.
Yes.
When he opened up the website, I ordered one of everything, and it was rad.
Yes. But yeah, look us up on Instagram. Just shoot us a message.
Perfect. Well,
Sounds
thanks.
awesome.
Thanks, Josh. We'll
Thanks,
see you
guys.
soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's. Oh, yes. And if you are listening at home, please subscribe. Or if you're watching, hit all of the things. Follow us, subscribe,
Like and share.
Like and share.
What streaming platforms are we available on, guys?
Yes, we're gonna add all of this in post because we'll be streaming later on. It's all
Cool.
confusing.
Fill in the commercials.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Come on, Cannalachia.